Do you recognize this? It's a piece of ginger from the grocery store. What they're selling is the tuber, and these are quite easy to grow and actually make quite an exotic plant. You can grow it indoors, or what I do is I pre-sprout it in the spring and then take it outside and put it in the garden. It's a very interesting plant. If it grows large enough, you can even harvest the ginger root for next year and have fresh ginger. In this video, I'll show you how to grow it and how to take care of it once it starts to grow. If we have a close look at this ginger, you'll see that there's a big piece back here that has a number of arms coming off it. This is the older part of the tuber. Each of these can be broken off and grown on its own. In fact, every tip here will grow into a new plant. Now you have a couple options here. You can plant the whole thing as is, and what it will do is make multiple shoots coming up. That gives you a nice full growth with lots of leaves all crammed together, which can look really nice. Or you can break these pieces into smaller parts and grow each of these as independent plants. This piece of ginger has enough growth on here that I could easily grow 5 or 6 plants out of it. The advantage of doing that is that each one of these will grow larger leaves because they're less crowded. And if you're trying to grow a ginger root, you'll actually get more root that way. I'm going to kind of do a hybrid of that. What I would normally do with this is break this piece off and grow it. Maybe grow this piece here and then leave these 2 smaller ones on the main piece and grow them. So I turn this into 3 plants. I don't really need a lot of plants in the garden. For the purpose of the video, I'm going to take this off, and you just snap it off and grow this one separately, and I'm going to leave the rest as is. Potting these up is pretty simple. Get yourself a pot, some good soil, if you're not sure which potting soil to use, I've made several videos about selecting the right potting soil, and I'll put a link to those at the end of this one. You don't want to fill the pot too much at this stage. Take your tubers and lay them on top. Doesn't really matter whether they're side up or not, but this is growing up, so I think I'll put it like this. The plants know which way is up and which way is down. Partially cover them with soil. Once these guys start growing more, I will add more soil to cover these up. But for now, I want some of this exposed so it stays a little drier. You want this media to be just moist, so don't water this a lot. Remember, there are no roots here. The plant is going to absorb very little moisture. You want just enough of this so that a little bit of moisture gets inside the tuber, and that will signal it to start growing. Once it has roots, then we can water more. You can let this sit in a warm room, or normal house temperature is fine. Or what I'm going to do is actually put it under my lights, although at this stage lights aren't going to do it a lot of good. Once you start seeing new shoots, then it does need to go under lights. So I'll bring you back in a couple weeks and show you what's going on. It's time to do an update on the ginger plant. Here's the plant here. It's doing quite well. It has about 5 growths coming up, and they're getting pretty tall. I still have them under lights. I have a pretty good quality LED grow light, and it's about this high above the pot. And they'll still be good there for a little while, but soon I'll have to move these into a sunny window because the light's not tall enough. I don't recommend you do this with your plant, but I'm going to take this out of the pot and knock a lot of the soil off just to show you what's going on underground. You can see that we're developing a really nice root system here. Now, if you remember, we had taken the large rhizome and broken one piece off, and this is the separate piece. You can see that by breaking this off, we've actually made two separate plants. And when they go in the garden, I would either plant them in different spots or at least plant them a foot apart to give them a little more room. This here is one solid piece, but you can see that it's made new growth at various points. And again, you have a couple options here. You can leave it just the way it is and plant it in the garden. Or I could actually break it into pieces. Well, I didn't mean to do this, but I guess it happened anyway. So there's one plant. And I could very easily do this and break it again. So there's another plant. And now we have another piece. Now when I pot these up again, this now is a fresh break. So there's a couple things you could do. If you happen to have some agricultural sulfur, you could put that on here. That'll prevent any fungus from going in there. But what I generally do is I'll just pot these up, and I just won't water them for a few days. Let this top part dry out, and they'll be fine. Boy, I can smell the ginger. It's really strong. It's the middle of March here, and it's still too early to go outside. What I think I'm going to do is pot these up in several pots, and that'll make it easier for me to transplant them later on. This is a good height for taking them outside. If you can grow them to this size inside, that's just about perfect for taking them outside. Now when you do go outside, you have to harden these guys off. So give them a little bit of direct sun the first day and a little bit more every day over about a week period. Don't rush these outside too fast because the leaves have to get conditioned to sunlight and to the wind and to the cooler temperature. Once they're hardened off, you can just plant them in the ground. Or if you prefer, plant them in a container and keep them like this. Now I think in the last segment I called these things tubers, and that's actually incorrect. The proper name for these are rhizomes. So these are very similar to what you find in a German bearded iris. It grows quite shallow in the ground and then makes new growth at the tip of the rhizome. When you move these outside, you have a couple options that sort of depend on where you live. I'm in zone 5, we're quite cool, and so I grow these in full sun, and they do all right here. But if you're in a warm climate, these will actually do better in part shade.